Last week, every market in the world was watching one person, Kevin Warsh, new chairman of the Federal Reserve. His first meeting as president of the committee that sets interest rates for the world's largest economy. The market wanted to know, would he cut? Hold? Signal a hike? The decision came, rates held. And immediately, analysts everywhere began dissecting every word Warsh said at the press conference. Every pause, every word choice. But there is a fundamental difference between chairing the Fed and controlling it. And understanding that difference changes everything about how you read every decision this committee makes. There is a widely held belief, in markets, on financial media, even among professionals, that the Fed is the chairman, that when Powell spoke, the Fed spoke, that now that Warsh has taken over, Warsh decides. This mental model has a very clear practical consequence. When the chairman gives a convincing interview, markets move. When he sounds uncertain, markets pull back. The problem is that a convincing interview changes nothing if it does not reflect the consensus of the rest of the committee. The chairman has exactly one vote, the same weight as any other member. The Fed was not designed to be led by a single person. It was designed specifically so that no single person could control it alone. To understand why, you need to see how the institution actually works from the inside. If the chairman doesn't decide alone, then who decides? The FOMC, the Federal Open Market Committee. A committee of 12 votes. 7 of those votes belong to the governors, members of the Board of Governors in Washington, nominated by the President of the United States, confirmed by the Senate, serving 14-year terms. 14 years. That means a single president rarely manages to reshape the committee during their time in office. This is not bureaucracy by accident. It is by design. The remaining 5 votes come from the presidents of the regional Federal Reserve banks, from New York to San Francisco, from Chicago to Atlanta, on an annual rotation. Why does New York always vote with no rotation? Because the Federal Reserve Bank of New York is the one that executes the committee's decisions in the markets. It is New York that buys and sells Treasury securities to move the rate in the chosen direction. Without New York, the decision exists on paper, but never reaches the market. How is a decision actually made? Before each meeting, the Fed's technical staff produces 2 dense internal documents sent to members in advance. One covers the complete economic analysis. The other lays out the monetary policy options and the implications of each scenario. Members arrive at the meeting having already studied these materials. They debate for 2 days. Each one presents their view on inflation, employment, and risk. Then they vote. Who writes the statement? This is the part that almost never gets explained. The statement is not written after the meeting. It is negotiated during it. Every word is discussed. When a word disappears from one statement to the next, that is not editing. It is the result of a consensus built between members with different views on inflation, growth, and risk. A member who wanted to signal a cut and a member who wanted to signal a hike must arrive at language that both can sign. At the April meeting this year, 3 members dissented, not on the rate decision itself, but on the language of the statement. They believed it signaled openness to cuts at a moment when inflation was still elevated. This is in the official minutes. 3 independent voices publicly resisting the direction of the communication, and it never made a single headline. What does the dot plot actually measure? Each member anonymously submits a projection, where they believe rates should be at the end of each year. The collection of those projections forms the dot plot. The chart markets follow closely. But it is not a promise. It is not a decision. It is a snapping of the committee's collective thinking at that specific moment, and it can change completely at the next meeting. 14-year terms, regional banks, rotating votes, 2 days of debate, technical documents prepared in advance, a statement negotiated word by word. All of this exists to prevent impulsive decisions. The slowness is not a flaw in the system, it is the system. With all of that in mind, it becomes much easier to understand what Warsh's arrival actually means, and where his limits are. Warsh shortened the statement, removed the language signaling a dovish bias, announced plans to reform forward guidance, the Fed's practice of telegraphing its decisions in advance. These are real changes in how the institution communicates. But communication is not the decision. They are two different things. And there is one more layer, unprecedented in over 75 years. Jerome Powell remains at the Fed as a governor with a vote until 2028. Warsh chairs, Powell votes. Two figures with different histories and different views inside the same committee from this point forward. At the June meeting, the dot plot, that map of anonymous projections, showed a median of 3.8% for the end of the year, above the current target of 3.5 to 3.75%, signaling that a rate hike is on the table. In March, 19 members submitted projections. In June, 18 did. And Warsh himself has announced he will reform the dot plot process in coming meetings. The market is reading a map that is itself in transition. The next time the Fed announces a decision, the most important question may not be whether rates went up or down. It may be this: what changed inside the committee to make that decision possible? How many members dissented? Did the statement get shorter or longer? Did a word disappear? Did the dot plot shift? Who spoke before the meeting, and what did they say? That is the layer where markets try to anticipate the future, not the headline. Markets will keep listening to one voice. Decisions will keep being made by 12 votes.